Hi everybody. So I'm Jayson Hill. I'm a senior manager at Toyota North America, our cloud and developer experience group. When we put this presentation together, I didn't realize how closely it would align to the learnings and everything that's gone on over the last couple of days. And I'm going to talk about kind of the evolution of our practice with FinOps. Some of the things we do. We'll talk about who we are and all that stuff. But really and truly what I've discovered over the last couple of days is our journey is the shared journey of the FinOps framework and the FinOps foundation. And so hopefully there's some takeaways for each of you as far as what our practice is, how we go about things. The other thing I'll say is that this is a pretty broad conversation, not necessarily a deep one, but if you have questions and you want to get deeper into any of the topics that we talk about, or really just kind of anything, I'm happy to be a part of that. So with that, let's go explore the engine and the fire and how Toyota does FinOps. So today we're going to learn who we are, what my group is. Hopefully y'all know who Toyota is. But if not, we can talk about that too. So we'll learn a little bit more about my group, the group within Toyota. We'll talk about the platform engineering principles and the FinOps principles, how we use those as our guiding light as far as the different products and services that we offer, specifically from a FinOps perspective, but also how it aligns with platform engineering. We'll talk about where we are today, what we've achieved. We'll talk about where we're going. That's from the context of Toyota, but it's also the context of where I think FinOps will ultimately go. So who are we? We are, like I said, we're the cloud and developer experience team within Toyota North America. We operate as a platform engineering team. We support thousands of cloud accounts across 3 major providers, so AWS, GCP, and Azure. Platform engineering team, I think by definition or almost by rote, you have to say that there's Kubernetes. So we do support Kubernetes, but we also support really a lot of the different resources and different services that are available within the cloud. And we do that by creating products and services for our teams. We support hundreds of teams and thousands of engineers across a very large organization. And again, we do that through different products and services that we offer. Clearly, we offer pipelines. You cannot be a platform engineering team and not offer CI/CD pipelines. We offer blueprints. So what blueprints are templated infrastructure as code. And that can mean something as simple as provisioning an S3 bucket into AWS. It can mean something as complicated as a full-fledged containerized web application with the WAF in front of it, with load balancers, S3 buckets for logs to go into. Fully templated out, people can go into our Chauffeur portal, which is our internal developer portal. We leverage Backstage for that, by the way. So good job, Spotify. The Backstage is amazing. But our teams can go in. They can leverage these blueprints. They can provision infrastructure. They can define the infrastructure through infrastructure as code and have it provisioned through our pipelines less than an hour. And that's for very, very complicated architectures in less than an hour. That's from concept to into an account in less than an hour. That's pretty good. We also, that's inside of our portal is where we have our FinOps data. So we do chargebacks. Obviously, we do showbacks as well as a part of that. You can log into the portal. So even though we call it a developer portal, it's open to all TM&A employees. So you can go in, you can see your run rates, you can see your overruns. We have alerting set up so that if you are burning hot on your budget, you will get an alert. Those alerts go to and through the portal as well. And we entered into this journey, I think like a lot of people, with the concept of how do we control and how do we reduce cloud costs. I think we've learned today, if we didn't know before, right, that's not actually what FinOps is. FinOps is more about leveraging the value or maximizing the value of the cloud for business applications or business objectives. But that's not exactly what FinOps is either, right? FinOps is more than that. FinOps is not just the cloud. It's all tooling. It's everything that an organization uses in order to be able to deliver its solutions. So for us, that can mean a lot of things. That can mean Datadog, right? So Datadog is our observability and telemetry tool. It could mean Atlassian, Confluence. It could mean GitHub. We use GitHub. We use GitHub Actions. It could mean Copilot. It can mean anything that is used to deliver and support and operate a software solution inside of a cloud account. And we look beyond that. So even in a hybrid situation, even if it's fully on-prem, how do we maximize the value that is gained no matter where that workload runs? How do we maximize that? And that's been our practice. And we've evolved from the beginning of, let's just make sure we have reduced the cloud spend, right? We can demonstrate that, we can show that. But I think we learned within Toyota, and I think we're learning here, right, that it's more than that. So how do we do that? So we have three, I'm going to discuss three today. We have a few guiding principles. These are, again, we're a platform engineering team. So these began as platform engineering principles. These are, I think, to me, the most important principles to follow as a platform engineering team. But we'll show how they relate directly to a FinOps practice. So the first one, we treat our platform as a product. So we adopt a product mindset. We avoid a project mindset. That's not to say that we don't do some projects. We do have some projects that come up from time to time. I mean, we are an infrastructure team, and we do support different tools and things like that. And sometimes licenses, come out of favor. Sometimes we move to different tools. So we do have some projects. But fundamentally, we're a project team, right? So we're a product delivery team, and we build our FinOps products just like we build any other product as a part of our platform engineering team. We focus on outcomes. We don't focus so much on output, although we do work really hard, right? But we focus on the outcomes that we can generate for our organization, and we do that through our self-service solutions. I'll get more into that, but everything that we do with the idea of, again, following everyone's responsible, right, for FinOps. And we don't do the work for the teams. We do provide self-service solutions for the teams to be able to do what they need to do. The other thing that we do, we try really hard at least, is ruthless prioritization. So I've heard a lot. I've heard everywhere from folks are, part-time doing FinOps, and it's not their normal day job. I've heard earlier, there was a team of 3. We're a team of 4. So you cannot support an organization as large as Toyota if you do not have ruthless prioritization. Again, are we as ruthless as we could be? Maybe, maybe not. But we work really hard. The way that we do that is we don't say no. If you say no all the time, you become difficult to work with. So don't just say no. But what you can do is you can say, well, what's the most valuable thing that we could be working on? Is the $20,000 savings? Is that the most valuable thing? Do we have $2 million in savings? Where is the most valuable thing for us to spend our time on? Once we identify that, we go through that prioritization, and then we execute and we focus. And then part of my job as a manager is to create space for the team to allow them to focus on that, right? And so I will shield them as much as I can, and then we empower our team to shield themselves, right? And say, hey, look, this is the most important thing. Somebody else comes in with something else. What's the value of it? Is it worth interrupting what we're doing? Does this bring a higher value? If not, we prioritize it, just like normal product management. The next one is maybe the most important one, or at least the most important learning. One of the most important learnings that we have, we operate as a profit center. FinOps is a profit center. It's not a cost center. We're a large organization. We centralized the subject matter expertise. A lot of times just by doing that within a large organization, you become viewed as a cost center, right? And then if you focus in and you say, well, I'm here to help drive the costs down, you further enabled yourself to be viewed as a cost center. You're not a cost center. FinOps is not a cost center. FinOps is a profit center. We've heard some of that this week, right? That there's a few ways to generate profit. One of them is by lowering costs. But really what we do is we're allowing organizations and helping organizations determine how to maximize the utilization of the cloud, the utilization of all the different tools, so that they can maximize the revenue, so that they can lower the costs themselves. So one of the ways that we do that, and this was a learning that we had, we used to go in there because we thought, well, we're here to help you lower your costs. So we would go in and say, hey, I see you're spending $5 million. If you do this work, you could lower your cost to $2 million. We got no buy-in. The teams were like, I don't care. The reason they didn't care is because it was a cost exercise. And they, as most product delivery teams, they were focused on, well, what are the new things to build? What are my new revenue opportunities? How can I go build this? There was no, they didn't have time. We don't have time to do this. We can't do that. We changed the conversation. We stopped saying go in and save, right? Go in and save. We stopped that. We went in and said, hey, your budget is so much. We see that we know how to get you $3 million more out of your budget. Here's all you need to do. If you do this, now you have $3 million you can go spend on something else. What else can you do with that $3 million? What else can you do for your business? We got immediate buy-in from every organization. It changed like that. We went from don't have time to we can get another $3 million in our budget by doing this work? Yes. How long is it going to take? I don't know, 2 weeks, a quarter, like it takes what it takes, whatever it would be, right? And they're like, fine, this is the most important thing for us to do. I want my $3 million, right? We're not here to take the money away. That's not our job. That's not any of our jobs, right? I mean, unless you're in the finance group, but then, God bless you. But that's not, I'm not here to take the $3 million away. I'm here to help you realize, oh my goodness, if we do this work, if we maximize our opportunities, if we maximize our efficiencies, I get this much more money that I already have in my budget. But now I can go do the things that I'm told I can't get money to do. I've uncovered additional money. This was the most powerful thing that we learned in our communications. And now we get buy-in on, we don't get immediate buy-in. I mean, there's still everybody else's prioritization too, but it's not a no. We don't get no's anymore. We get, maybe not today, maybe, next sprint, maybe next quarter, whenever, but we can get a timeline and we see much more positive movement in that way. So that may be maybe we're stopping the talk right now because that's the biggest learning that we had. But we're not going to talk about it. We'll keep going. One of the things, again, because we develop products and service, we empower through self-service guardrails. So we move away from folks opening a ticket to us. Again, in a large enterprise, centrally managed, a lot of times it's, go open a ticket to do this, especially if you think about, maybe like firewall rules and changes and things like that. Oh, I've got to open a ticket to the firewall team and they've got to go make the change and this and that. And all of that makes sense, but that organizational habit can become pervasive and can become part of how you're viewed too. We don't do that. We'll go in, they could book time with us, we'll go in and do the cost estimations with them. But we don't go delete anything. We don't touch their stuff, right? And you don't open a ticket for me to do that. But we do offer self-service solutions. Through that, we've empowered the teams to take responsibility for their own spend, right? There's no more, I can't do this, I don't know how, it's whatever. It's like, okay, fine, we'll show you how to do that. But you are empowered to do that. So empowerment is great, but without accountability, sometimes you don't get the empowerment becomes worthless, right? So we also funnel all this information up, and I think I've seen this in other places too. This is what we do. We will say, here's what your spend is, here's your potential savings, here's whether or not you're going to do it. So we know, like we can link back to the JIRA tickets and see when it's scheduled and all this and that, or at least it's in the backlog, or there's nothing because we own all the tooling, so it's easy for us to kind of navigate all of that. And then if you don't have anything scheduled, that may or may not find its way up to the executive level, and then you can explain to them why you're not saving, $10 million or whatever it is. Again, we're not heavy-handed. It's not our responsibility. We will help you if you want to be helped. We will build the things that you need in order to be able to do your job as effectively as possible. But, if you're not going to do it, then you can go talk to CFO, not us. Some of the things that we do offer, right? So really low-hanging fruit things, snapshot maintenance, the deletion of detached volumes, things of that nature. Again, the mechanical nature of it all, right? These things just kind of happen within the organization. You can opt in on those kinds of services through our developer portal, and we will take care of everything for you. Other things that we don't have yet, but other thing we do have is just through our blueprints, right? So when you're provisioning an S3 bucket, it's, sometimes you forget about intelligent tiering. It's just simple little things like that drive efficiencies all throughout the organization. Sometimes folks think about it, sometimes they don't. So if you go leverage our blueprints, you get that stuff out of the box. You get cost optimization out of the box with our blueprints. How meaningful is that? Some folks think, yay, man, that's amazing. Some folks are like, why do I care? That's just part of the cultural nature of it, right? Some folks they care a lot about that. Other folks don't care. But another thing they do get is they get full security compliance. So our security team has a whole set of policies. Every group cares about that. They're like, you mean that I'll get an A on my accreditation if I use your stuff? Like, absolutely, we guarantee it. And then if we ever miss that, we go fix it immediately, and that way folks can get it. Some of the offerings that we have in the future, like Lambda right sizing, we see folks maybe picking really big Lambdas where they don't need them, and that's just inefficient and it's very costly. And then we have other things in the future too, like all the other things that could be, and maybe even some AI, because again, I feel like you can't have a presentation without AI. We'll talk about that here in a minute. One of the biggest things that we focus on, reducing the cognitive load of our software engineering teams. So this is big as a platform engineering team. I'll also say I think it's incredibly important from a FinOps practice as well. Again, think about what we're asking. We're asking software engineers who have to think about all of these different things. They've got security, right? They've got to be concerned about security. They've got to be concerned about all the different architectural abilities, right? Availability, resiliency, all of these different things that they have to consider as a part of building their solutions. And here we are coming in and saying, well, wait a minute, you also have to think about cost. Don't build something that's so expensive that we're not gonna maximize our revenue. And they're like, look, can you just please stop, leave us alone. We just want to write code. I feel that as an engineer for a very, very long time. So how do we then reduce that extraneous load? How do we start to take away, not completely remove it? Again, you can't completely remove it, but how do we reduce that load? How do we make it easier for them? So again, because of our platform engineering principles, we bake the cost optimization into their day-to-day activities through tooling and through guardrails so that they have to spend less time. This is one of the areas where AI will come into play, right? Like it's the easiest thing to do is to bring in how do we augment, how do we supplement their knowledge and give them the tooling? Am I going down the right direction, or what's the right direction for me to go down? This is the easiest thing in the world for AI to come in. We simplify things through abstractions, again, by baking them into our blueprints, by providing them AI, and then we don't hide the optimizations from them. We give them the ability to consider the cost as early as possible, and we want them to make good decisions, and then we'll see in the reporting whether or not they're making those decisions. So those are the platform engineering principles that we operate from and that we've incorporated into our FinOps practice. You can see here, aligned with the FinOps principles, they align very, very well, right? There's empowerment. When teams need to collaborate, that's empowerment. Decisions are driven by the business value of the cloud. That speaks to the heart of product management, right? Treating your FinOps practice or treating your platform as a product. A centralized team that drives FinOps, that's reducing the cognitive load. So there was very, very tight and very, very clear alignment to these principles. And that helped us kind of move forward with our FinOps practice. All right, so big deal, right? What does all of this mean? How have your principles really meant anything to the organization, right? So what have we achieved so far? And we've been practicing maybe 4 years. I've been with Toyota for about 3 years. It was this FinOps practice was in its infancy when I joined, so let's say 4. So in 4 years, we've maximized about $10 million in savings. I would say the bulk of that has been in the last 2 years. One of the biggest things that we've done is really made significant gains on providing clarity to the total cost of ownership for workloads running in the cloud. Previously, it really was I have no idea, like I barely even know what my spend is. Well, you know what, when you get charged back to your cost center, $5 million every year, now you know. You're like, oh, hold on, why is it so expensive? Or, you know what, that's not so bad. Either way. And then one of the things that we started early was charging back more than just our cloud spend. We've been charging back Datadog for a couple of years. We're moving towards, if we're not charging back GitHub now, we will be doing that very, very soon. We have Copilot coming into play. We'll be charging that back. Again, all of the different services, that very much, we knew early that was going to be a part of the FinOps program. And it really resonated with me, obviously, in the keynote and with some of the other breakout sessions really talking about that. FinOps is more than just the cloud now, right? It's everything, being able to maximize everything in order to be able to achieve business objectives in the most cost-efficient way. So what are some of the things that we're looking to do? I'll get into the allocation part. One of the things that we don't do very well is we're really limited in the way folks can visualize their cloud spend. And so we want to broaden the dimensions and allow them more ways for them to visualize the current spend and then create models for them to do forecasting and things like that. We 100% want to shift left. I know we've heard that a lot. We 100% want to shift left the FinOps practices and the cost optimization. We want to bring that earlier into the software delivery lifecycle. Today, and I think I'll touch on this in a minute, but today most of the cost optimizations are done post-prod deployment. We want to solve that earlier, right? And then I think the biggest thing, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, but I think the biggest thing where I think FinOps is going and where I think observability is going, and so I'm a huge, very, very passionate about observability practices. I think organizations that do that well are some of the leading organizations in the world. And where I believe we're going with FinOps and with observability is creating stronger operational intelligence, meaning one of the primary objectives that I believe we should have is allowing teams to make better, more informed decisions earlier and be able to react quickly to whatever's going on. And I think organizations that are able to do that will become leading organizations in whatever industry that they're in. I think operational intelligence is the key, and I think FinOps plays a significant part in that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of our practices and some of the things we do. So invoicing and chargebacks. What we do well, we have a very robust chargeback solution. Again, that started before I joined, so it's probably the most mature thing that we do. But we include chargeback for DevOps tooling as well. So again, the Datadogs, the GitHubs, the everything, ultimately the everything. Our chargeback process can actually be leveraged by other groups within our organization who may want to charge back those services. So again, we don't have a gigantic Kubernetes ecosystem, but we do have some. And so some of the organizations maybe are running big applications with lots of different components inside of Kubernetes and maybe separated by namespaces and things like that. So they're like, well, I would like to be able to charge. What we do is we just see everything operating inside of that cloud account. We charge it back to a cost center. And they're like, well, I would actually like to be able to charge these across multiple cost centers. And our answer to that is previously was, well, fine, you can send this data to us through an API. And I'll touch on this when we talk about Focus here in just a minute. So we created this API. This predated Focus. We created this API. We created an architectural, the architecture aligns to the way Focus kind of works, where we tried to create this area of separation down to where we could normalize to a common data structure or common data construct. And then Focus came around. I was like, oh, this is so much nicer than what we did. So we will actually, in our future, right, we'll be moving to the Focus specification, and we're very happy that it's in general availability now. Our chargeback process is mostly automated. I would say it's fully automated right up until the point to where we do generate an Excel spreadsheet, provide it to our finance team. We've talked to them about, we have the spreadsheet and we know the finance system. We can just upload the data for you. You don't have to review that. And I don't know if you've ever tried to take Excel away from a finance team, but you talk about the biggest pushback I've ever seen. They're like, oh, no. We will review it. And I'm like, but you could save time. And then I watched them one day do it, and they can do in Excel in seconds what takes me hours to figure out how to do. I was like, okay, y'all are wizards. We'll never automate this. So don't ever try and take Excel away from a bunch of accountants. That will not work out well. That may be the second biggest learning. So future outcome, we want to continue to refine and refactor our chargeback solution. We want to move to the Focus specification. We think that's going to greatly enable us to bring in the tooling. And we've even discussed as we start to build this stuff out that maybe we can contribute back. We'd like to be a part of that too. That's how much we think Focus will help us. So thank you to everybody who works on Focus. Okay, this is maybe the worst slide that I have. I don't even know if y'all can tell anything here. On the left-hand side is how we started with data ingestion. On the right-hand side is how it works today. The pieces inside of here really aren't necessarily the most important part. But just real quickly, on the left-hand side, we started with a Lambda, because that's how you start everything. So we started with a Lambda. We actually would connect to the Cur data for AWS. We would pull it through. We would run Athena queries inside of a Lambda, pull all of that stuff into memory, and do all of these business rules and business calculations inside of the Lambda. It was big, it was gnarly, it was messy, it was complex, it was pretty fragile. It was not all, it was automated because the Lambda it was triggered to be able to run monthly, but it wasn't really automated because it didn't work very well, and we had to do a lot of manual inspection and fix everything and learn how all of that worked, and that's kind of the point, right, is it doesn't really matter how you start. And again, we are a software engineering team, so we start by writing software. If you're not a software engineering team, that's okay. The most important thing is to start, just figure out whatever it is that you know how to do, go do that, right? So if you're a wizard in Excel too, I will certainly not try and take Excel out of your hands. But if you know how to do that, and if you can pull all of that data into Excel and do whatever magic you can do inside of there, do that. Like, it's okay. It's the most important thing is to start, right? Just to start trying to pull the data, trying to normalize it, trying to figure out how to do all that stuff. We have migrated and evolved and grown and changed to now, I think it would be maybe a more commonly expected piece to where, we'll leverage Glue, we still leverage Athena a lot, that it's constantly evolving. And that's the thing, and again, this is maybe the software engineering inside of me is to say that the most important thing when you start, like from a software perspective, make sure that what you're building, you can evolve and grow and change over time. And then if you ever get to a point to where you need to, I think the most meaningful, one of the most meaningful things I heard was Disney's keynote where she talked about, we built all these linear regressions, we did all of this, and it worked great right up until it didn't, and she had to burn it all down. I would say it's software, don't be afraid to burn it all down. Like, it's okay. Solve the problem, and as soon as it no longer solves the problem, if you have to go solve the problem in a different way, then go do that, Like don't let the software that you've already built stop you from solving the current problem that you have today. If you can evolve it, if you can apply good software engineering practices, if you can refactor, if you can grow it, if you can extend it, do those things. But if the problem changes on you, don't be afraid to leave that stuff behind and to go solve the problem. It's the most important thing. Just solve problems. Okay, our allocation talk about problem. Oh, one more thing, sorry. I almost forgot. Data ingestion. The biggest problem that we have are credits. When we have, again, we're a large organization. We have thousands of accounts. We'll get a credit. A lot of times we get credits and we know how to allocate those back to the different cloud accounts. Sometimes we get credits. We have no idea what to do with them. That used to cause us a lot of problems. It used to take us days, if not weeks, to figure out. It used to be working with our cloud provider. Sometimes they didn't know what it was supposed to be. A lot of times they didn't know what it was. It would take us a long time to even realize we had a problem. Right? It was really bad. So we've grown and we've matured, and now we've kind of created areas in here where, I think just recently, if not this past month and the month before that, we got a significant credit coming in, and we didn't know how to allocate it, but we identified, we knew we had it, and one of the team members reached out to AWS, figured out what it was, and she fixed it in just a couple hours. So that kind of evolution, being able to see that, oh, this thing came in, and here's how, because it used to come in, it would just come in, and then those awful lambdas that we had would just go in there and try to figure out how to apply it, and it was a mess, and we would spend weeks undoing everything. Now we just see, oh, I have a thing, I don't know what to do about it, so I'm just gonna kind of log it over here and let you know and say, hey, here's a thing over here I don't know what to do with, please come tell me. And so she went in, she figured it out, made a code change, pushed the code change, reapplied it, and everything worked, again, in a couple hours. But that is the one thing where I think we still continue to see those kinds of things happen. Not as often as before, but they still happen. Okay, allocation, because allocation, what we did was we solved our problem for allocation, again, because we were focused so much on charging back. We wanted to get those costs out of our cost center and into the appropriate cost centers. So when we do, the cloud account is really where we do that allocation, and that's how the costs are apportioned back to the responsible parties. And then there's an association between our cloud accounts to the cost center. That worked okay for a while. And then folks were like, look, your cloud account doesn't mean that much to me. Because I want to be able to see things across a lot of different things. Inside of a cloud account, we may have something that has operated inside of there for a couple of years. And then we may have some new initiatives that are working in there, and they may be different components of the same workload. There might be two different workloads working in there. That's a different conversation, but that may happen. Right? And they're like, look, we want to charge these things. We want to see this in a different way through a different context, not just inside the cloud account. So we want to be able to see it across our projects. We want to be able to see it across products. Some of our executives have asked us, I want to see it across a business capability. Business capabilities may exist across multiple cloud accounts and multiple workloads that are composed to deliver that capability. That's something that we don't do well today. But one of the main reasons, it's not that we're not capable of doing it. Tagging is probably the easiest way to do that. But we encourage tagging. We don't enforce tagging. And again, without the maturity across the organization, then some folks will tag and they love it. And they're like, thank you for building that into your blueprints. But also, they'll just tag as a part of their provisioning or whatever. But a large part of the organization doesn't do that. So we've talked about maybe moving away from just being encouraging to being a little more forceful about it. That's a real slippery slope, right? Because we don't want to stop innovation. We don't want to stop things from going to production, but we do want to be able to track across these things. And tagging is probably the easiest way to do that. Budgeting. When we started this, so again, I joined about 3 years ago, I can tell you very few folks actually went into the cloud account section or the chargeback section inside the developer portal, very few folks across the organization went in there. It's been there for 2 or 3 years now. Very few folks used it. But we noticed something this year, right? So this year, as a part of our FY25 budget planning, about 70% of the groups that are operating workloads inside the cloud went back and looked at historical data. So we leverage Datadog, and we can see, all that activity. We know what pages are being hit, and we know who's going in there, how long they're spending in there, all that. So I don't want to sound too big brother, but we know all of that stuff. And it was amazing. And we had previously, again, for the previous 2 budget cycles, very few folks were doing that. A significant portion, 70% of our groups were doing that. Really, that's a credit to the evangelization from the platform team and our finance team. Our finance team is a very good partner. I make a lot of jokes about Excel and stuff like that, but they are a fantastic group to work with, and they partner with us. And as they're having conversations, right, and their budget exercises with all the different leaders across the organization, they are also driving folks over there. Hey, if you want to know what because some of our folks really don't know. And they're like, if you want to know what you're spending, and if you want to know to be able to, what you're expected to spend in the upcoming budget cycle, go look at the historical data. So thank you, finance team, but also, the hard work from our cloud economics team, which is a part of our platform team. So through that is where we started to get a lot of feedback from folks to be able to see things across multiple dimensions, but also to do that for different personas. So our finance team, who is one of our biggest proponents, and again, I don't know that this is necessarily a bad thing, but they have to download everything into a big Excel spreadsheet. And we're like, well, we could do some things and maybe you didn't have to use Excel. And again, they're like, the eyes get bigger, like, but we love Excel. We're like, okay, well, you can keep doing that. But our business sponsors maybe do want to use Excel, maybe don't. And so, but they definitely want to look at things a little bit differently. Most of our different business sponsors don't want to see things across the entire organization. Finance absolutely does. I need to hurry. Okay, unit economics. This is the most important thing we don't do very well. And the reason that we don't do well at it is unit economics for us is incredibly difficult. Because what's a unit? What's a unit inside of an organization as large as Toyota? Is it a vehicle? Is it a consumer? Is it a dealer? Is it a part? Is it all of those things? It can't be all of those things by definition. So what is it? And the answer is it actually is all of those things, but it depends on the context, right? It depends on which level you're talking about. So at different levels of our organization, this term unit means something different. We're like, what in the world are we going to do about that? So what we started to do was borrow from domain-driven design and the ubiquitous language around, well, what is a unit, right? And allow a unit to mean something inside of that domain and mean something else inside of this domain, so that at the micro level, and micro level in this case means across each business group, they can see the unit, right? They know what their transactional cost is or what their unit cost is. And then we have to roll that up and say, well, these are all the different units across the organization, but the term unit now is abstracted a little bit at the macro level, so for the executives, and you can still see the effectiveness using unit economics across each different group, and then again across different capabilities or however you want to look at it. But that's really kind of the approach that we're going to take. And then the most important thing to me is unit economics is how FinOps will actually contribute to an organization's operational intelligence. So the ultimate goal to me is that you're combining observability. So we have all of this telemetry, and whether you think about observability 1.0 or 2.0, and I don't know if that means anything, I can come back and have a different conversation around that. But either, logs, metrics, and traces, or wide events, or however you think about observability, and then rolling in FinOps so that you see the unit economics and you overlay all of this stuff together so that you can see your units increasing. But what you want to see out of that is a widening gap between, different revenues. So as long as your revenue gap is widening from your unit cost to your return on investment of that unit cost, then you are succeeding as an organization. That is, by definition, that's operational intelligence. And again, to do that, in our case, real time matters, right? When we're talking about in the plants and when we're talking about building vehicles, real time matters. And the way that Toyota works, the Toyota production system, right? We do just-in-time delivery for parts. And so these are real and real-time events that we want to track, and we want to be able to track how is the workload providing the value? Is it providing the value? Is it maximizing the value that you can get as we're building vehicles, as we're servicing dealers, or whomever it might be? So I believe that is what the ultimate goal for FinOps is. Just to wrap things up real quick, where we are, where we're going. So today, tagging is encouraged. Tomorrow's tagging is enforced. Cost optimization after product deployments. Shift cost optimization left to where we get that earlier. Today we have a centralized FinOps subject matter experts. Tomorrow we have AI, Archie. We call him Archie. He doesn't exist yet, but he will soon. And then, quarterly annual data analysis for setting up upcoming budgets. We want to incorporate observability and FinOps into operational intelligence. Let our organizations make more informed decisions more quickly. Thank you very much.
Woo. Thanks so much, Jayson. It was really good.
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X 2024 content on our YouTube channel on the 2024 playlist. Support our channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and by leaving comments and questions for our speakers. We appreciate your support.